I just can't think of a time where there was more of a disruptor or opportunity for people to, create the impact, create the changes, create the results they want. I think the real estate pros, the business owners who have leaned into, all the platforms that are maybe controversial, those are the ones that are really getting some head start and winning.
Welcome to the Raquel Show. This show is for entrepreneurs who love to play bigger. And today I have someone who I felt like I've known for a long time, for like years, which in fact, I've never met in person.
I was just going to say.
Yeah, right? He's like my long lost brother is what I tell people.
Yeah.
He's an industry thought leader who continues to keep playing bigger. He's one of those people that when you look at his social media, even though you haven't talked to him for weeks or maybe months, he's always growing. He's always playing bigger, and he elevates people around him to continue to play bigger and just never stops. He's a growth advisor for one of the largest real estate tech platforms that's valued at bajillion dollars. And he's a father of Four.
Yeah.
Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And he's a wealth of knowledge. So I can't wait to have this conversation. Welcome to the show, Conor Murnane.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate all the kind words. Like you were just saying, it felt like family. And it is weird to even remember that we have not yet connected in person, but soon enough.
Oh my gosh. So I'd love for everyone to tell the audience, for you to tell them who Conor is and what do you do?
Yeah. So I'm down in San Diego, which is where I'm originally from. I did live for a while, went to school and started work up in the Bay Area in San Francisco. And so it was really around 2009 when I first started getting into real estate and tech. I was fortunate to be an early employee at Trulia before they went public, before getting acquired by Zillow Group, and have been with that company ever since, working with real estate pros. And it was maybe around 2017 when I was thinking about kind of starting to document my journey a little bit more. I invested in Tesla and just kind of started writing articles and posts about that. And then it was really just 2020. So a little over 2 years ago when I decided I was so lucky to have all these kind of conversations with some of the best in real estate, like mutual friends that we have. And I decided to kind of start clicking record on some of those conversations. And that's led to even so many more opportunities today, so many more relationships, so many more learnings. It's something I'm having a lot of fun with and growing as we go.
And how often do you do those interviews? Because you've been super consistent from the time that I've known you.
It might be kind of been breaking sort of updates or news on this show here. So to answer your question, I've been doing the interviews. It's about 2 years and I was doing them weekly, if not anywhere from 1 to 5 interviews in a week. And I had my stints of, maybe taking a few weeks break here and there. But at this point, I've interviewed and collaborated with well over 100 or hundreds of different real estate pros in the space. And I'd say it's just in the last maybe month or 2 months where I've kind of been shifting my approach to video content a little bit, something I've been sort of shying away from for a long time, which is not just doing conversations with other people exactly like this, which I always will enjoy. But, now starting to share a lot of the lessons learned and the, things that are on my mind by just looking at the camera and talking the talk. So I'm trying to do a little bit more of just first person video and doing less interviews these days.
So awesome. So with you being like an early person at Trulia, right? Mm-hmm. Which is now Zillow, like you said, and it's the largest consumer driven platform on the market ever. Yeah. Like you guys are so far ahead on data. I love that you have a unique perspective on the industry and in just like business trends. And I know that you interview a lot of different agents, like the best of the best in the industry. What have you seen out there when it comes to technology and how it's grown in the real estate space? What have you seen out there just being at the forefront of it?
Yeah, a couple of things that come to mind, and you nailed it in saying, I think the unique view that sort of sums up my 12 plus years in the space is that I do get to see what some of the top team leaders from all different parts of the country are kind of doing. So full disclosure, I don't even have my license. I've never shown or sold a home.
I was just going to ask you, was there ever a time that you wanted to be a real estate agent?
I mean, I've thought about it. I've definitely had a lot of people push me toward it, but I'm so the type that like, I can't even like complete the test to get my license, but like, which was, to me was like an indicator of like, okay, my fire maybe isn't there for that type of, work exactly. But I've always had the love for people in real estate, whether they're, in tech or selling homes in the field or whatever it is. And so that's been my unique views at the front of the roller coaster, what is happening, what's working, what's not. And that really has been a huge interest of mine, just to kind of learn strategies in business and trends. And so, to your question, a couple things. So one of them, and I hope this one isn't too cliche, but there's sort of this mindset, this mental kind of strength that I noticed that, there's so many things that are, valid fears, whether it's fearing technology or fearing competitors or other things that we all have to adapt to. And there's kind of this clear, like unshakable mindset that some of these, top leaders have, where maybe it's this, naive optimism or, whatever you want to call it, but it's kind of like this determination to, always try new things, always play bigger, always look at leveling up. Even if they're number one here, then how can they be number one in the world? And so it's kind of this like insane mindset of not getting rattled or not getting shook and all the different noise that's happening. There's been a lot of these last couple of years that can easily distract people or easily, again, be very valid reasons to fear, whether that's things going on personally or professionally in their lives. But that's one of the first things that comes to mind. And when I look at a lot of the different clips that I've made from the interviews, I think this is kind of a way of my own like reflection and analysis of like what have been the topics. And part of this is just my own focus in the interviews, but just that I draw a lot of inspiration from, these are some of the most raw entrepreneurs, in the industry, real estate pros. And so just having that gritty kind of like, fight mentality is something that really resonates with me. But a little bit more on like, I'll give one other side of the coin is just kind of some of the maybe practical, tips is just really leaning into this device. So I think whether it's learning to manage an entire business, a team, a CRM, et cetera, communication, all through the phone, whether it's creating content, et cetera, through the platforms, the social apps that are on this phone. There are tons of things that still work that are maybe considered old school or traditional, and that's all fine. But the people that know how to win on this device, I think, is also another trend that really sticks out to me.
Oh my God, you said so many like nuggets in there that I want to just ask some questions. So first, I think you said like you have seen some common theme of like this unshakable mindset. And I think Tim Grover wrote a book on like Relentless, and I'm actually reading his second book, which is Winning, which I think like speaks to that completely. And you have seen like agents adopt technology. Some of the best in the business is what have you seen them adopt specifically that has allowed them to kind of be at the forefront? Because you guys work with the top of the markets.
Yeah, I'll give two. And before I even do that, I'll kind of maybe point out to any real estate pro that's listening to this, what is sort of like an elephant in the room, but like, Zillow has a lot of love and hate in the space, right? Like, and I have empathy for that. Like my grandmother was a realtor, my family, that's why I got interested in just real estate. But, going to school in Silicon Valley, I was kind of always nerding out on the tech elements of it all. And so, there are a lot of agents who kind of decided it's with or against, it's this like us or them. It's kind of this like binary thing. And what I've noticed, and granted, again, I'm sort of in this like bubble of, of certain agents, but a lot of these top teams, they don't really look at it as like an either or, they kind of describe it as an and. So, whether it's a channel partner like Zillow or name any of these other, realtor.com or HomeLight or any of these other sort of aggregating sites that one might feel threatened by, they just sort of look at it as one pillar in their business. So they've adopted some of these things that other very well respected, longtime top producing real estate pros essentially were, anti, they were against, they were talking all the shit and again, that's, I think, totally okay. Everyone has what's right for them, but they've sort of looked at it as and versus either or. And so they're willing to embrace things that so many would describe as like a threat to them, but it's actually becomes a strength that they can leverage in their business. The second thing is kind of going deeper on what I was describing when you say adopting technology, but like video. I'm obsessed with video, and it's one of those communication mediums that, I feel like it's more powerful than anything we've really seen, and it's still just scratching the surface. So in '09, I remember communicating with real estate brokers with a fax machine. Like, I love telling that story because I'm 35. I look like I'm, 22, but like I was doing work, when using a fax machine, and that was very normal in a day-to-day world then. And it's kind of like funny to even think about right now in 2022. But, I watched that evolve into landlines and email and text messages. And now between social and video, I just can't think of a time where there was more of a disruptor or opportunity for people to, create the impact, create the changes, create the results they want in their, personal lives and in their businesses than video. So I think the real estate pros, the business owners who have leaned into, all the platforms that are maybe controversial and have leaned into personal brand and developing themselves on video, I think those are the ones that are really getting, some head start and winning.
You bring up a really good point on like social media platforms and video. And I love like always studying trends. How important do you think video is in the next couple of years to somebody's business, to somebody's brand?
Yeah, I was just describing to a personal client of mine. I think it's very closely shifting from like an option or an advantage to a necessity, especially in real estate. We're in, I'm going to steal this one from a buddy, Zachary Faust, but we're in a face-facing business. So if you're a realtor, like eventually your client is going to see you face to face. Eventually they're going to hear your voice. They're going to get a sense for your vibe. And, in 2025, I sort of imagine that, every single client or, prospective customer will expect to see and feel that before they even meet in person, just like we were describing at the beginning of this episode. So that's kind of an advantage or an option today, but I picture in the future that being a complete necessity. Otherwise, you just won't be a business. So, and I love the way you described this before when I had you on the show, which was, everyone has their algorithm. Like, it might be that, you're amazing in Instagram stories. It might be that you crush it on LinkedIn, as just a platform in general, and have amazing writing skills or whatever that is. But if it's not video, I think people do need to get a sense for your, your vibe and your personality. And I really see that happening really in all industries, not even something like real estate.
100%. I think that there's nothing better than human connection, and video brings that out a little bit more, brings out the personality a little bit more. Even when you make those errors, it shows that you're authentic. And they say that people can communicate and connect more when people are authentic.
Yeah.
So I couldn't agree with you more.
It shows the raw and the real. And like I was, this is how nerdy I am with like the video stuff. I was reading on the psychology of it, and humans have always preferred the fastest form of communication. However, whether we're talking slowly to each other or in some other form, and kind of in order, you've got from bottom up, you've got writing and reading, a full paragraph would essentially be the slowest, which makes sense. That's been around for like thousands of years. And then you've got kind of shapes and icons, which, think emojis maybe. So the people have kind of moved to faster shortcuts. They want to understand stuff in, smaller bites. They skim through communication. And then you've got, video and audio, which is basically people can watch something like this. They can absorb what we're saying. They can see what we're, feeling, and all that happening in a matter of seconds. So video is one of the fastest ways to communicate, and people prefer speed.
Yeah, you're seeing that evolution on these platforms. You're seeing how even content produced on video is getting more views, right? And when we look at companies today, it used to be like all letters. Now it's sometimes even an icon that represents the company, and you just kind of know, right?
Yeah.
So like that short form, like you just mentioned, is happening.
Yeah, I can't remember now the Instagram CEO's name, but he put out a post a couple of weeks ago, and people have probably seen Instagram Reels and just the whole shift where it's starting to look and feel like TikTok. But being a real practitioner, posting all the time, like I can see what stuff is actually clicking and getting traction and what stuff is just dead. And, things like written posts and things like photos and kind of in long form videos. I mean, whether that's just a consumer behavior of people not having the time and the attention to give it, and or the platforms that are trying to drive this. It's like, 15 to 30-second videos is sort of like on the longer side these days. And, that's becoming, more preferred by every single platform.
So if somebody was going to look at upping their game, right, when it comes to videos, and you're one that really studies like all of these trends and like even practices, what tools would you recommend somebody definitely start with?
A few things come to mind, but hopefully this isn't dodging your question too much. But the way that worked well for me is just like the learning by the doing. And so not having, some fancy camera equipment, et cetera. Like truly the only tools I have today are like a $30 microphone and like a $30 ring light. Yeah. And then the phone. And really these cameras are getting insane, so like you truly don't need anything too bizarre. I've seen people that almost get too wrapped up in like the tools and the tactics and everything. And it starts to slide down this like path of looking for perfection. And all of a sudden you're going slower and slower and it's just never happening. So I almost like to think of maybe the process. If I was talking to someone that was new or wanting to level up, like a couple of the steps, here are maybe 3 steps that come to mind to me for the process. But the first one is sort of identifying sort of what I'd call your pillars of content. So it might be how you're going to position yourself. It might be things you like to talk about, but an interview model, or what I've done a post about calling it the vodcast model, is one pillar. So I've interviewed 100 plus people. I recorded those conversations. Those are videos in of itself. I can clip the 30 seconds that are inspiring or insightful from those and make a video out of that. And so that's one pillar. I could interview another 100 people over the next year plus if I really wanted to, and still have infinite amounts of content to create. So once you can identify a couple of pillars, then I think you've got a good foundation, or essentially you don't have any excuses to not create. So while I'm on that topic, give one other sort of example is when I'm looking at the camera and I'm saying, some sort of a story or point, that's another pillar. I could share, 100 different ideas, whether it's how to with video editing or things I'm investing in, but me just looking at the camera and pre-writing a script and then saying it, that's a whole nother pillar. So once you have a couple of pillars, then I think you kind of have your strategy outlined. And so the second point of process is giving yourself a minimum cadence or a minimum frequency. It's kind of like holding yourself to an actual execution. So just like we brush our teeth every day or go to the gym every other day, whatever it is that you hold very closely because it's so valuable to you, I think you have to kind of land on a minimum cadence. So for a while there, I was saying, okay, once a day, I'm going to post a video, no matter how shitty or good it is. Like I'm going to post something that's a video. And again, through the learning by doing, over time, you start to really improve. Over time, you start to pick up what's working, or you get faster, and so on and so on. But the third thing that comes to mind is just, and this is for more like sustainability, longevity, is sticking to the topics that are so interesting to you that the views actually just don't even matter. So what I mean is like, the interview, going back to that as an example, like I love having conversations like this from people that I respect, already want to learn from, already feel inspired by. And so views and so on were just sort of bonus and extra. Like I could just the fact that I can have these conversations or tell someone, hey, I interview people, want to do an interview. Like that was like an easier way of having a free, conversation than be like, hey, can I book time on your calendar? Like pick your brain about X, Y, and Z. Like most people don't love that. And so the reason I think that third point is so important is if you can stay consistent, then good things inevitably happen, whether that's, again, meeting new people, you improving your skills, or finding the thing that energizes you. But it's so important, I think, to find a sort of a model or a pillar that allows you to go forever. Because, a lot of times when people, do ask me a question like, how can I level up, or how can I do X, Y, Z with my own videos? They're kind of always looking for a one hit, like, as if that's going to solve all the things that they want, indefinitely. And really what we're trying to figure out is like the process. Last point I'll say on this whole topic is there's a book behind me that's one of my favorites, The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. And that changed so much of the way I look at things. Because if we are feeling like, okay, I'm gonna do 4 videos, and then that's either gonna be successful or a failure, that's just a finite way of thinking. But if we look at what we're gonna do over the next 50, the next 100 years, it really can take a lot of the pressure off and sometimes make it a little easier in our day-to-day.
Oh my gosh. I love all of that you said. And if you don't follow Conor, you definitely need to follow him. And we'll also put it in the show notes. But one of the things you said is you do these interviews and you can go back and you've got like all this content, and some people call it like repurposing.
Right.
And you've got a video of like, if you're going to make a video, you might as well put it to whatever like
Squeeze
platform.
the juice. Yeah.
Right. So what advice would you give to our audience that are listening today who don't necessarily follow you, or like, because I thought that was gold. And I don't think a lot of people think about that.
So the post that you were referring to is that it does take a lot of time, energy, resources, money, whatever it is, just to make one video. And when you think about that, it's like an asset. There's a top agent here in San Diego, Kyle Whistle. He describes it as like, it's your employee. I mean, this video is me talking, and if someone's watching, it's like I'm having a conversation, even though it's not me. So I've scaled myself. I've created this asset that's valuable to me. But if you only put it in one channel, if you only put it on one platform, you're just not squeezing, the juice for everything it's got. And so I really recommend like these 5 channels at sort of a minimum for any content that someone has, even if it's we're talking, other types of video or other types of content, but maybe in order of this, like, and this is for me, but Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, and then even batching some of those maybe once a week and putting like a little thumbnail link to that in an email newsletter. So you can put like your last 5 videos with little kind of subsections where different people in your email database can click, which will link them out to your Instagram or something. It might even sound like a lot of effort, almost just saying that. It almost sounds like more than it really does in reality, because there's a learning curve to that. Once you actually get used to these different platforms and you have that one video file, I mean, we're talking about less than 5 minutes to truly distribute it everywhere. And I can now map revenue to my own, personal income of, different projects or contracts, et cetera, that were directly from different platforms every single time. And so, if you're really trying to maximize, your efforts, then I think showing up in all the places really matters.
It's like no different when you say like assets and investing.
Yeah.
When you diversify, you get a better chance of a net worth, right?
Totally.
Sometimes. And speaking of projects, you had one of the first, I say, like video conferences in real estate. You're an early adopter to real estate tech. And you've also just mentioned that you were invested in Tesla a long time ago.
Yeah.
And if there's one person that I know in my world today that like seems to know like the next right thing, it's this guy that you guys are listening to. So where does that come from? How did you learn, or like what intrigues, like, cause I mean, there's a pattern. It's not like a one-off thing.
Yeah, I'd actually, as much as I like would love to be like identify as an early adopter, part of me feels like I'm a little bit on the slower side, like in terms of cautious, and in terms of like what it is that I could have capitalized on. Like I'll share a couple of stories on, call them strikeouts or misses, being too late to the party. But I think where the strength is when I do taste it, when I do feel it, like I really commit in kind of almost an unhealthy way. Like I go all in. I really feel like that's the thing. And so whether it was investing or something like video is one where I'd say took me years, actual multiple years of acknowledging to myself and to others, this is important, but I'm not doing it. I mean, there were years, I want to say, where I remember telling an actual billionaire, like, this Tesla thing it's like a big opportunity. This was probably 2015. I was saying like someone should be in this, like this is a huge opportunity to invest. He told me it was dumb. It was a small market and so on. And so it was still then another like couple of years where I was like, well, I'm just going to put my own money into this, no matter how small it is at the time. And I'm going to kind of try and, create through my own beliefs. And so, maybe here's one just to share one loss example, but
or lesson.
Lesson, let's call it. But like this whole craze on NFTs and crypto and all that.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah.
I'm still even sometimes have mixed feelings there, because without getting too nerdy and in the weeds, like I do feel like there's an underlying technology that is absolutely going to be the foundation of, smart contracts in the future that, changes how people, connect on platforms, how communities are formed on platforms. I do think some of the art, like a lot of the art stuff is just going to be kind of like early 2000s, websites that are going to kind of flop out. But I've been a longtime follower of Gary Vee. I'm sure most people are familiar with him. And I knew about his project, Coming Be Friends. This is maybe not even a couple of years ago or something. And so I hadn't done the whole like create a MetaMask wallet, put crypto money into it, like all this. So I was like, all right, I'm going to just try and learn by doing. So I'd like uploaded, I want to say like $1,000 into it. And his first NFTs came out on that project for like 5,000 or 6,000. They're trading at, when I was looking at it, and I was like, I still don't really know much about all this stuff. Like I wasn't mentally, emotionally like prepared to do even more than $1,000. And I was just kind of holding on it, and then it did not make any moves. And then like 2-3 months later, it's trading at like 50, 60 grand. And so that was, a huge, what I felt like was, dang, if I just actually pulled the trigger, I was early enough. I knew several friends that got in on Bored Ape, which is now well into the 6 figures. And like, it's tough not to get too wrapped up on the, on the what ifs, and instead just take the lesson learned from it. But yeah, I don't know if I'm great at predicting, as much of the future as much as feeling like when it is here today, going all in on it and how to actually dive in.
So taking that lesson that you had learned through that, and thanks for sharing that example, is what has that done for you, and how do you look at things now in the future when it comes to investing or just different things that are coming out?
I think it's just not actually beating myself up too much on the FOMO, because, this one's been around forever, but like I know plenty of people that are crushing it with real estate flipping right now. And like, there's a part of me that's like, dang, like maybe I should be diving into that a little bit. And so like, you can pick all these different things, from tech stocks to crypto and NFTs to real estate and content marketing and all the things that can come around that. And so I think my biggest lesson on that is trying not to beat myself up too much for, missing some of these opportunities. Like, it's just going to be inherent that everyone is missing an opportunity. But if you can really have a narrow focus on kind of your one thing, then you can build a big enough, sort of foundation to be able to dabble into other stuff. And so right now, my one thing that I'm trying to stay focused on is video, is content, is brand and relationships. And, and that's I feel like still just the beginning of my journey.
Oh, so good. You just like wrapped it up all back into like video. Cause I was just going to say, like, it happens in video too. You got to focus on that one thing. Yeah. Or sometimes you have to focus on that one platform first to just get comfortable till you like go to all the other platforms. Right.
Yeah.
And I love like how you just wrapped all of that lessons, because I think that also happens in business, in any business, whether it's business or investing, is just, we learn from our lessons.
For sure.
And even though like video is like the thing, or reels is a thing, at the end of the day, it's still connection that gets you further. It's still relationships. I always say relationships are what get you further in life than any strategy.
For sure.
And you kind of like outlined that like in today's interview.
For sure. I feel like the relationship part has been what I not only enjoy the most, it's what I've been, privileged to be in a position to make a lot of strong relationships. So I like leaning into that. And so much agree with what you're saying, just kind of quoting one of your past guests. I want to say it was either Felicity or Alicia. I could be butchering one of those, but she was saying like, you even launching your podcast made them think, maybe I should launch my own podcast. And it's tough not to get kind of sidetracked into a lot of these different distractions of even just in one category, like creating content. I see people doing certain types of videos, or I compare myself to maybe results they're getting. And, I'll often kind of get, distracted for a moment, but trying to stay focused.
I will never forget the first time I saw Conor's video, and I was like, why is this not on your highlights? Why is this like not in your feed? Like, I had no idea the talent that you had when it came to video. So I'm like super excited to see you grow, because now that's all I get to see on your feed. is all the videos. And I love to share all the tips. So if people want to connect with you, because you do give not only investing tips, not only video tips, you talk about like certain markets too, and like what's trending, where can people connect with you?
So LinkedIn and Instagram are probably my two favorite at the moment. I kind of bounce between those. I could be pretty slow to respond if you hit in one area or the other, but I pretty much like to get back to everyone that, on every single platform. So wherever they are, I like to meet them, but Instagram is where I kind of hang out the most.
Okay. So Instagram, and what's your handle? And we'll also put it in the show notes.
Yeah. So just my name with an underscore in between. So Conor_Murnane.
Okay. Well, I always ask, my last and final question for you as we wrap up is, what is one thing you do to play bigger in business and in life?
Yeah. First, I just love that that's your theme. I love that that's like something that I have grown to like identify with you and your brand. So that sticks with me. And as I was thinking about this a little bit earlier, I hope this, I have to imagine some of your guests have said this as an answer before, but when I think about what actually pushes me to play bigger, what helps me play bigger, we were just touching on it a little bit, but it's the people that are closest to me and how much I either do or don't, aspire to be like them. And so I have to almost intentionally find people that maybe scare me a little bit. Maybe I feel like I'm not as good as them, or maybe I feel like I don't deserve to be on their level, but really being intentional about, getting close to some of these relationships that really do challenge me to play bigger. And a lot of them, some that I'm even thinking of now, it's not even like a direct mentorship or anything like that, as much as it's just me trying to get a little bit closer to them in one way or another, me studying them a little bit, way in one way or another. And so it's the people, it's definitely the friends and the colleagues in our industry that, that help me to play bigger.
I love that, Conor. It is so cool to hear you say that. And I think what's really cool about this whole play bigger, I don't think a lot of people know, is like anybody can think bigger. We always heard the word like think bigger, but when you actually play, you actually take action. Yeah. And when you make it fun, it becomes even better with people.
It's so true. The play is like such an underrated word in that phrase there, because that's the way I look at a lot of like, even just like video, content and marketing is like, I'm playing, I'm having fun. And in that process, we absolutely grow. I think, whether it's, the 4 children or us, even as adults, it's really, the most learning happens through play for sure.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. Well, thank you so much, Conor, for being on the show. I am so honored to have you on this show. You were, like they say, that industry thought leader, the GOAT. Like everyone knows you by the first name. They don't even know your last name. So, and I knew that when I launched the podcast and when we were planning it, I was like, he's got to be on my show. I think even before we launched it, I think I asked you. Yeah. So thank you so much for being on our show. Everybody, like all your notes and where people can connect with you on our show notes. And thank you so much for your time.
It was an honor. Thank you.